Good evening, Des Moines. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here in the lavish Webcast1Live.com studios in the Skywalk in downtown Des Moines. You know, every time that I bring in the show, and every time I kind of tell you all where the studio is, and that's in the Skywalk above the Burger King in downtown Des Moines, I always want to say it's the Ped Mall, because I went to school in Iowa City and I can't get that particular geographic landmark out of my head. And so if you hear me kind of hitch every time that I bring the show in, that's what it is. I don't like to keep production secrets and also kind of flesh out the ever expanding Doc and Lefty Wikipedia page entry that we're the two of us are working on. But with me as always is the main man. If Reagan was a car salesman, this guy would be an investor, Dr. Pat Petrosh. Doc.
You are talking to Doc with Doc and Lefty. I'm glad to be back after a little bit of a break last week. It was so bad last week. We just decided
we succumbed to the polar vortex, my friend.
We did. We succumbed to it. And poor Frank, he's just a college student, and he takes the Ed Fallon approach, where if he tries to save money on gas, he just either walks or catches a ride on the back of a bicycle. So we decided to give him the night off. I was going to tell you, I've been watching the weather. Did you know they actually have a website for weather on Mars? I didn't know that.
Oh, is that? Oh, yeah, really?
And,
I didn't know that either.
This morning when I woke up, it was warmer on Mars than it was here. And in fact, at the Winter Olympics, it's almost 50 degrees out there. Can you believe that?
I can't believe that.
It's amazing. Anyway.
Well, we might be on the tail end of it, because I heard that we're going to get up to 30s or 40s. Now, generally what that's meant in the last couple of weeks is that it snowed the very next day, and it's wreaks havoc on getting around Des Moines. But I got to tell you that I finally have moved over to this side of town, so I don't have to deal with that treacherous 2:35 commute anymore getting to the office. So no more 3-hour jaunts. Now I'm seeing it. Now my girlfriend knows that if it takes me 3 hours to get home, it's by choice and not because of the weather.
Yeah, that's rats. What you need to do though is just have a little snow machine at home. And when you're going to be late, just have a remote, click it on, have it snow.
I got to tell you, it was the funniest thing. So, I'm shoveling a driveway again. And you know how much I love doing that. Actually, I don't mind it. I like the exercise.
Here's how much he doesn't mind it. There was middle of winter, freezing cold, like it is now. Yep. Not quite as bad, but still. And he's got all this ice everywhere. And he's out there chipping the ice off this stuff. And I'm going, what are you doing? Well, I just want to make sure I don't have ice. It's not like it was right in the middle where you walk. I mean, it's along the edges. I was
cleaning it all off. I'm a thorough guy.
And I'm like, dude, just wait a couple of months. It'll melt off. It'll be fine.
I don't mind doing it, it made it easier because I hate going over that ice hump that gets left there after the snow plows your driveway, and I hate that. It messes up the underside of your car.
Yeah.
And so I try and keep it to a minimum. But anyway, I bring that up because I shovel, and then it snowed, and I shoveled again, and then it snowed again, and I was getting really sick of it. And I was really legitimately thinking, hey, I'm about to give up. I'm not in shoveling shape. We only just moved into this house. I'm not up for this winter. I've shoveled it 3 times. If it snows again, if it's less than 3 inches, I'm not going to bother with it. Well, as it turned out, I had to run a whole bunch of errands on Saturday when it was snowing anyway, so it was getting packed down. It was terrible, and I was backing out of the driveway, and our neighbor whichever direction side of the house it is, the new neighbor was out. He's this older guy. And I kind of called out to him, hey, I can't wait to have to deal with my driveway too, trying to make conversation. I haven't met him yet. And he offered to blow out the driveway. And I flashed back to the time that you offered to blow out the driveway. And you remember I said, oh, don't bother with it. And it's not a bother. And you were really nice and warm and welcoming about helping me out in that way. This guy, I said, oh, don't worry about it. I'll shovel it when I get home. It's not a big deal. I was just making conversation. Well, why don't you want me to do it? And he's an older guy, very curmudgeonly. And I said, well, I don't want to put you out. I don't want to inconvenience you. And I'm in my car shouting to him across the yard. I don't want to put you out any. What? I don't want to put you out any. Oh, it's not a bother. Well, it sounds like a bother. It sounds like you're kind of annoyed that I don't want you to do it, but you don't really want to do it. That's the attitude. That's the attitude I'm getting from you, sir. And I said, well, if you want to do it, that's fine, and we'll get you back sometime. And we have a snow blown out driveway.
Well, that's pretty nice.
It was really nice.
You know why it was so easy for you and I to come to that conclusion? Why I just go over and help you out?
Why is that?
Because you drove that darn bubble machine. And I had such pity for the guy I had to drive that. My friends and I would make fun before we met, we still would see that. We always go, who in their right mind would do that to themselves?
Well,
we were taking bets on exactly how emasculated you were.
Well, you know why that happened, right? I told you that story too. Yeah. It was because I had to.
Yeah.
And it was not a choice. I had to drive that particular car.
Well, and the bottom line is after you told me that, I told my buddies, you got to back off because it's a really legitimate question. So we're glad you're driving something else.
Right.
We're going to be back right after the break. We're going to be tackling. You want to tackle the Olympics and all the.
I do kind of. That's all what everybody's talking about. But I do kind of want to talk about some of it. Because I have some thoughts about the Olympics. All
right. We'll be back right after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We're here every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Want to thank our sponsors right off the bat. We really appreciate their patronage. And folks, if you ever need to talk to somebody to kind of whether it be in an informal sort of back and forth chat session or a more formalized counseling psychological profile kind of session, you can't do better than Bertrosian Associates. That's my partner's outfit here. He's got a staff that's just great. He's got other doctors there that are. Well, you don't have any other DOs in the office? I think you're the only one, correct?
Yeah, there's barely any psychiatrists in Des Moines as it is.
But you have some licensed psychologists. You have some therapists.
Yep.
Okay, yep. Some licensed counseling practitioners and whatever the alphabet soup is that you guys have at the end of your names.
Super genius.
Yeah, right. They're all great people and they do really well. And if you want to, if you're having some kind of issue, whether it be an easy a dispute with a friend of yours or a not so easy problem with the state of Iowa. In a criminal capacity, you can come down to my shop. It's Labinas Law Firm on Southeast 14th. You're up on Meredith in Des Moines. And we've got a website.
In the fun part of town, next to Skate North.
That's right. And I'm on the business side of town. Well, the rebirth, the reborn business side of town. To tell you the truth,
there's been some businesses. You
gotta like the progress, but. The big thing that's happening now, and you know that, folks, that we like to talk about the big thing that's happening now, is not in Iowa politics, which is
should be the big thing.
It always should be the big thing. We try and bring that to you as much as we can, but it's the Olympics. The Olympics are happening, and I can tell you two very true things about it, as far as I'm concerned. One, I have not watched a single second. I don't have regular TV anymore. The Winter Olympics... You know, I don't really care about the Winter Olympics that much. There, I said it. The United States is always kind of the laughing stock of the superpowers that are participating in the Olympics. It's always these spoiled ski babies from Norway and Sweden that always win all the medals, and we don't even have the Soviet Union to kind of go up against anymore in figure skating and hockey and all the stuff that we're really good at as a country. So I don't really care. It's fun to talk about, and we've been doing okay so far, but gosh, we were at the top of the leaderboard for a day, and now Norway and Denmark and all these other countries, and great for them. That's fine, but it's not one of the events. I'm looking forward more to the World Cup here this spring and summer. In Brazil.
Soccer?
Yeah. Because, and I'm not the biggest soccer fan in the world, but I watched it in 2010, and boy, that was exciting. The shocking and the exciting wins that the United States have or had back in 2010, and they're expected to not do very well in their group, but hopefully if they can get out of their group, to do really well in the elimination round. So we're looking forward to that. Anyway, I know that you are personally more interested in these Winter Olympics than you have been in years past, because they're dealing a lot with your wheelhouse. This is your neck of the woods. You are a southeastern Russian Ukrainian expert. So what are your thoughts about these games so far?
Well, I'm going to tell you. Oh, you didn't mention my Grandmaster Big P out there.
You know what? I thought we were going to leave that as a secret for the break.
Oh yeah, we should have.
Yep.
Rats. Anyway, Frank said that I looked too ugly with my bill out front, so he made me turn my hat around. Can you imagine that kind of control? We give that guy that kind of control, Blake.
Yeah, well, I gotta say,
he needs to have that kind of control.
He's the one that knows this gig better than we do.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I like to surround myself with smart people.
You bet. There should be a Winter Olympics of producers. We should make him, and who's that gal that does Ed? Maddie.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yep.
We should make them ski down, do something, luge down the stairs, or
I don't know. I mean, you could see if they were able to do some kind of maybe a snowshoeing, but they're both pretty in shape, skinny people, and skinny people in cold weather tend to get really, really cold, really, really fast. I don't want to speak for him, but I know that I'm a well insulated human being, and I don't feel the cold like other people who are not as well insulated do.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the Olympics. What I anticipated when they first announced that Sochi was going to get it. One, you're right up against Chechnya, and that's always been a nasty spot. And there's going to be all kinds of problems with that. Number two, you have to keep in mind what everybody is complaining about over in Sochi is the best that the Russians have. And this is why I come back to this. People in America, people in Western Europe have no idea how these other people live. Though there are people in Russia wanting to go to the Olympics, standing for hours just to get searched, and then standing for hours to get tickets, and then standing for more hours having their bags searched. The other thing is, the conditions over there, I know they spent $53 billion.
That they don't cop to that amount. That's what's interesting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was the BBC did an interview with one of the representatives over. I don't know if it was a government official. I can't remember who it was with, but in an interview last week talking about how these are the most expensive Olympics ever, saying you've spent about $50 billion. Says no, we haven't. If you look at our reports on what we spent for construction, it's only about $7 billion, which is right in line with other Olympics in the past. And you could tell that the interviewer, and I love it when BBC interviewers get kind of flustered because they don't really trip over themselves the way American broadcasters can kind of do when they're exasperated, because British people are sort of more polite that way. And I don't know if it feels like they're better equipped to deal with it than we are. We're a little more fiery, I think, as a country. I don't want to cast any aspersions, but he kind of laughed a little bit, and he says, well, that's not the number that we had. It was hysterical.
Oh, yeah.
And the back and forth was hysterical. So, but yeah, they're not admitting to that. They're saying that it's right in line with all the other Olympics.
Well, he's probably right. They did spend $7 billion for everything else, and the other $46 billion on bribes.
That's That's what everybody's saying. The international observers and the people that have been watching the development of these games have talked about how expensive everything has been, and how most of it is going to the oligarchs and the real estate folks that are really who are wetting their beaks off this thing.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're going to get shoddy construction. You're going to have doors that don't open. You're going to have pipes that have crap in them all the time. They're always going to have brown water. I mean, for crying out loud, there are towns where they turn off the water for 2 weeks to all the citizens of the town so that the water manager can go on vacation. Nobody has water. So you have to go visit your relatives to go get a bath. That's the reality in Russia and in Ukraine, a lot of these former Soviet republics. Now, compare and contrast that just for a second with the Chinese, who build these giant, wonderful cities where everything works, but nobody moves into them. Go figure. But the bottom line is there's always problems at the Olympics. There's always glitches. Yep. And the latest glitch is the half pipe people, the snowboarders. It's so warm. It's almost 50 over there. It's so warm that the bottom of the chute, or whatever you want to call that thing, is just mushy. So you slide through, and instead of being on snow, you just hit water.
Well, why do you suppose there are so many places in Russia that are so cold, and they're mountains in Siberia? I know that's probably not a really great place. Or even if you're in the northern, well, I don't know my geography in this area the way that you do, but the Caucasus they can
around that, yeah.
Around there. I don't know if the Caucasus go through Russia or not, but
they do.
They do?
Yeah.
It's a border, right? It's the southern border.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they pick a colder, more wintry kind of area?
Well, nobody knows. My suspicion is no one what I know. Because one of the things you have to learn about Chechnya is once all that fighting settled down, most of the antagonists on both sides started killing each other. I mean, there's usually 1 or 2 assassinations in Vienna every year with these high-ranking people from Chechnya. So my thinking is, and I'm just complete speculation, in order to keep the peace, that's where it was had. Plus, it's an economically depressed region, so you might as well have an influx of money into there. But the bottom line is they're saying all their accommodations are terrible. I will tell you, just about the average Russian would think, man, this is a palace. This is the best thing ever. So that's kind of my point about the Olympics. I think it's a terrible idea to have the Russians host the Olympics. Look, we were just talking. Well, we'll get back to soccer. We'll compare this to the Ukrainians and how they handled the World Cup right after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
Petrosian Associates, how can I help you?
Petrosh and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Petrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're talking Olympics. We're talking the greatest sports event of the every 4 years. We're talking, just putting aside our political differences, our racial and ethnic differences, to get together and everybody hate gay people. That's what we're talking about in these Olympics. And that's the big story. The big story has been that, the USA and Russia kind of bickering back and forth, and really the United States kind of thumbing their nose at Russia a little bit over this gay propaganda thing that Putin passed. And you gotta wonder. And this will be in a larger point that I make about having the games in Russia, because I tend to agree with you, maybe for different reasons. Does it strike you as odd that for all of the sort of backbiting and the criticizing and the terrible human rights record that we claim, that we sort of always impute onto Russia, that the international community would approve Sochi to host the Winter Olympics. Now, this was done like 7 years ago, right? Give them 7 years to get ready. But still, I mean, Russia hasn't changed very much. I think Dmitry Medvedev was the prime minister. That's the only thing that's different 7 years ago as opposed to today. Should we be sort of okay with these places that we think of as imperialistic and undemocratic hosting the most sort of, it's supposed to be one of the more democratic international events that we have every 4 years?
Well, that's part of the problem with big ideas like the Olympics and the UN. You and I have squared off over the UN. The problem is the Olympics is supposed to be for everybody.
Yep.
It's supposed to
regardless of anything.
Yeah. And, don't get me wrong. It's not like, as a partisan, my feelings are, if they're not with us, they're against us. And, the Russians can, well, I don't have anything polite to say about that, but if they don't get it, I'm happy with that. But the problem is that's not the spirit of the Olympics. The spirit of the Olympics started back in Greece was everybody fought each other in Greece. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was just the way it was. But there was one time they could all get together, try to conduct some business. Because I can tell you right now, there's a lot of backdoor dealing at the Olympics between enemies of everybody. Mm-hmm. Because that's the one place you can get together where you can actually talk. So I think that's one of the things. Back 7-8 years ago when they announced this, you have to keep in mind that Russia their economy was really starting to return. They were really making some peaceful overtures to the rest of the world, saying we're really not the bad guys. And that's, I think, was part of the reason they made that decision. So now you brought up the gay thing. One of the things is this pro-gay marriage stuff is something that is at the tail end of my generation, but is fully invested in your generation. Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is if you go out and you look at the rest of the world and their attitude towards gays and gay marriage, U.S. and Western Europe and Australia are the exceptions rather than the rule.
Well, and a lot of the countries in South America too. Paraguay, Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina have all kind of come onto the equal rights for homosexuals. Here's the point that I wanted to make about that. Just briefly before I let you get back to it. Vladimir Putin, for all of his for all of the things that maybe folks popularly don't like about him, is not a politically unsavvy person. Okay?
Putin?
Right. He's not. He might. I've heard criticism from some of his critics and who are in Russia, some Russian reporters who've talked about how he's a very fundamentally not very bright person. He's more of a I guess I don't want to. Boy, I've been using this word too much. I don't want to use this. The only word that comes to mind, a thug. He's more of a thug type of mindset rather than a thinker like Medvedev, basically. He's not as smart as him. He's not a very bright individual as what these reporters talk about, and who am I to argue with anybody about it? But that's one of the narratives that's out there. But he's definitely not a politically stupid person. He understands politics. He understands power. He understands perception and understands how to sort of put his power out around the world. I feel that this gay propaganda thing, not a blunder in the sense that he didn't know what was going to happen, but I feel it was if he wanted the Olympics to be a singular event to showcase his glory, this gay propaganda thing has really sullied that, because the Western press, that's all they want to talk about. What do you think about that? Well,
there's a lot more issues going on over there than just, their view on gay marriage. Number two, strangely enough, he had said repeatedly that Russia is a Christian country and they're going to follow their Christian values.
But it's not about It's not about marriage. This law makes it a criminal offense to spread gay propaganda, as in displaying symbols that are that are supportive of homosexuality, like rainbow flags or gays are good, you can be fined or imprisoned for doing that. That's I mean, to an American, that seems so out of bounds that
and that's absolutely true. But you have to keep in mind that Russia, I mean, think of how many people how many different cultures live in America, right?
Right.
Almost all of our cultures are non-native. People brought their culture from another country, moved here. Now, Russia covers this vast area,
right,
where every single one of the cultures is native. Which culture is best? You know, so they have to do this strong arm thing. One of our listeners on Facebook I can't read it because I took my glasses off, but basically he said, well, you have to be a thug in order to run Russia. This is what you have to do. You know, keep in mind, Putin ran the KGB. Can't get any more thuggish than that. So here he is running his country, trying to keep it safe, just like the rest of us. You know, they have to deal with their Islamists as well as I do, with the added benefit of the Russian church is one of the main things that's keeping Russia stable. And they've had a tremendous resurgence over the last 20 years. Something like, I mean, it's if the Catholic Church had this kind of resurgence, everybody be going like, holy cow, it really must be God working in the Catholic Church. That is how strong it is. They've gone from an atheist country with nobody going to church to they're building a new church every other day and sticking everybody in it. They have the church is getting tremendous wealth, and that's one of the ways that Putin keeps it under control is touting, you know, basically going along. They call them patriarchs, basically going along with the Pope, with the Pope of the Russian Orthodox Church. You know, these people, they don't carry a tremendous amount of political power, but they can get people to settle down, which is, you know, great. That's the problem. Like, just to talk a little bit about Ukraine, that's one of the issues in Ukraine. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church is having a resurgence as well, but they don't have that ability to keep them under control because they're like Catholics and Lutherans, right? You have the Russian Orthodox and you have the Ukrainian Orthodox. And so that's just kind of one of the things that is going on. Now, we burned through another segment. I do want to talk just a little bit next segment about comparing and contrasting Sochi Olympics to the Poland-Ukrainian FIFA World Cup.
Okay.
So right after the break, we'll be back. You're listening to Doc and Lefty every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on webcast1live.com.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're talking Eastern Central Europe today, which is always one of Doc's most favorite topics to get in, to sink his teeth into. And I just want to kind of close up a little bit of the Rush Talk while we're doing some on the fly research, and just point out a couple of different things for our listeners who are maybe more concerned with the anti-homosexual push in Russia than I think my partner is. It feels like to me, this is a take that I've heard, and I think this is fairly accurate. It feels to me that a lot of this stuff has support cultural, it has support natively. You're seeing this stuff in Nigeria and Kenya and Russia become more and more of a news in the more and more news-ish, I guess. And you hear in some of the reporting that they're being backed and being heavily supported by right-wing Christian groups from America, from the U.S. A lot of the Kenyan law, the Ugandan law, the Nigerian laws all have huge support from Christian groups in the United States. Russia, there's some consulting there too, and it feels like to me is that a lot of the right wing conservatives who are really on fire about this issue, and there are a bunch of them. Not every conservative really goes to the mat about homosexuality, but a lot of them do. They feel like they've lost the argument in the United States, and I think the polls prove that out. I think the fact that we have Utah and Oklahoma going towards legalizing marriage for same-sex couples is another piece of evidence for that. The United States they've lost the United States, and so now, because it's so important to them, they're exporting their views to other parts of the world, to Uganda, to Nigeria, to Russia, and I think it's interesting in a world where the narrative is that we're going to becoming more globalized, we're going to trying to become more inclusive. You see this persistent, we except for a few kinds of people, except for gay people, except for this other kind of group of people over here. You've got Christians and Muslims and the CAR killing each other. There's still divisions, but it's interesting that that's a division that seems like it's being exported from America because it's not finding traction in America anymore.
Well, Christianity has always been exported. I mean, that's what we do. Doesn't matter where you're.
No,
at.
I'm talking about that view in particular. I'm not talking about proselytizing people to the faith, buddy. We don't need to do that in Nigeria and Uganda, especially. Those are very heavily Christian countries.
Yes. Now I understand what your point is, but the bottom line is it was very difficult to get divorced in Russia. The Russians themselves, who were on the liberal cutting edge of all kinds of political thought, right? They embraced communism. And Karl Marx, here they are going, well, we need to have people stay married as the basis of our economy. That's what the Ukrainians have done. That's what the Russians did, the Ukrainians before they split off. So when you start talking about exporting, quote, gay hate, or however you want to say it, I don't think is necessarily true. If you hold a certain set of values and you hold that that a marriage is between a man and a woman, why say, well, geez, now they're an exception? Because there's a lot of exceptions. When you start talking to liberals about things, they're always accepting people. And
hold on a second, because I'm not necessarily talking about that.
Well, maybe I'm talking your point.
I'm talking about the draconian anti-gay legislation that's being passed in these three countries that I've mentioned. Nigeria, Uganda, and Russia have been supported dramatically by conservative Christian groups that are based in the United States, whether it's the guy that helped write the death penalty legislation in Uganda, or the groups that helped draw up the gay propaganda law in Russia. They're getting consulting, and this. I'm not saying that these countries are coming here to learn about this stuff. I'm not saying it's not organic, that their attitude towards homosexuality is not organic to them. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the arguments of Christian conservatives from America are finding solace here because of their own personal cultural beliefs.
Well, what would reverse this? We didn't get to this part in America. We didn't get to gay marriage is great in America.
I'm not talking about gay marriage.
Hang on a second. We didn't get here overnight. Like I said, this is a generational thing. Started way back in the 60s, maybe even the 50s, and gradually worn down. And so suddenly they see, because let's look at it. Most of the gay marriage bills that say gay marriage is legal has happened at least in the last 6 years. It's not like, in 1995, President Clinton said, I'm going to make gay marriage legal. He said, I'm against it. So what's happened in that period of time? Well, the tide has finally changed. You have an entire indoctrinated 2 or 3 generations indoctrinated with this. These people that are from Christian countries overseas stop and they go, holy smokes, look what happened to the U.S. We better start doing something now. Because there's, and what's strange to me is in America, the marriage of abortion and gay rights and euthanasia are all kind of together. And these are things that are anathema to Christians. But these issues are now hooked together in these other countries. Well, I can't speak for Africa. I haven't studied that. I don't know. But I do know in Russia and Ukraine, that's what they do. They look and they go, well, hold on, what's going on? What's going on here? And this is kind of a backlash. Now, I will tell you, I just told you about the resurgence of the Russian Orthodox Church. Mm-hmm. They have the same views. They have the same views about abortion as well, right? The Muslims definitely have that view. Not so much with abortion, right? They have a way you can scroll around and get an abortion there, although I don't quite understand it all. The Ukrainians, if you go over there and you talk to these people, and they'll introduce you to your family and they'll be nice, and then they'll make sure they tell you, don't hold his hand too long. He is gay. They'll tell you that. That's the kind of that's what they're facing overseas. I don't think it has a lot to do with us exporting it over there.
Well, I mean, the evidence is that American groups are having a big influence on this legislation getting passed and getting written and all that stuff.
That may be true, because where else are you going to get your influence?
And the final point, I mean, we're getting a little off track because we wanted to keep talking about sports, but the final point that I'll make about it is that you have these countries that are susceptible to this kind of stuff anyway, passing legislation that makes it a crime to be gay, that makes it a crime to have a homosexual relationship with a person with another person of the same sex. Obviously, makes it in Uganda it was on the books that it was punishable by death. If you were caught having sex with a person of the same sex, you'd be killed. That's not the kind of thing that I think is very good to have in your country, and it's the Americans that are it's certain groups of Americans that are supporting it, and I think that's problematic. But that's maybe a topic for a different show.
Yeah,
because we're talking sports.
We went drug off.
We went far afield. I didn't mean to get. I brought it up as sort of like because that was the one. Well, one of the many things besmirching Putin.
But here's my point about Ukraine. Ukraine, the World Cup.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they didn't have it in 2012.
Right here, UEFA Euro 2012.
Oh, the UEFA. Yeah, that's different.
Oh, well, I didn't know. I don't follow that.
That's the under 20s, I think. No, that's U20. Never mind.
That's the whole thing.
No, UEFA's not FIFA. That's a different.
Is that it? Well, whatever it was, there was a big deal.
Yes, you're right.
It went off like without a hitch. People flying back and forth between Poland, Ukraine, driving slick as a whistle. People started talking about how all Ukrainian women are hookers, and the Danish even had a commercial about it. None of that turned out to be true. It was one of the best experiences, well-run experiences, and billions was spent on these stadiums, billions in 2 countries, and it went off without a hitch. Now you look at this, cluster over in Sochi, and you have to stop and think, really, exactly how are the Russians able to outmaneuver us in foreign policy so often when they came to an Olympics?
Well,
anyway, we'll be back right after the break. You're listening to Talk and Lefty every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. because you're the one that made us go along.
Yeah,
we'll be back right after the break.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is the Doc and Lefty program. As you've heard, we are here every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30. I almost said we're here every 6:30 to 7:30, but that would be a really tough run of shows to do if we're doing them twice a day at 6:30 in the morning and 6:30 at night every single day. But no, we're here once a week, every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30. We're kind of in a lighter mood because I feel like I see the light at the end of the tunnel with this winter. It's going to get warmer this weekend. Maybe that the weather can cooperate and kind of snowball, because I got to tell you, I'm ground out. I am worn to a nub with this cold. I don't mind the cold so much when it was 5 degrees below zero every morning. It makes it tough on a guy. But so you wanted to talk about a little bit of domestic stuff, and we're going to I doubt we're going to have it this year, but they're talking about the gas tax again, aren't they?
Yeah, they're really
the
talking
user
about
fee,
it.
The user fee,
yeah, because
or the excise fee, or whatever Branstad calls it.
Yeah, because liberals love
That's a Branstad thing.
Things.
That's a
my
Branstad
God.
thing.
Oh,
am I wrong? I'm not wrong about that.
No, you're not wrong about it.
User fees is what he calls them.
I will tell you, I was talking to my brother Joe today about the gas tax, and my brother Joe is, God bless him, if he gets something in his head, he chews that bone till it's done. And so I got all the information I never even wanted to know about the gas tax. So I want to thank my brother for this, because like the last episode, or our last segment, we had a couple people saying, "Hey, where's the proof of this?" And
where's the proof of what? Of my claims?
Of my claims and your claims.
Oh, okay.
And the bottom line is that's kind of not this is an opinion show. We try to give as much information as accurately possible, but we don't spend hours and hours during the week making sure everything we say is absolutely 100% true, because honest to God, we got lives, I mean, you're a lawyer, I'm a doctor, for crying out loud. We get busy. So we try to be as accurate as we can, but we often don't have the thing right in front of us. Anyway, turns out that, our roads and stuff are maintained by gas taxes, right? And you have federal tax and you have a state tax, and each state does its tax differently. And so the bottom line is, there's been two things that have happened. One, it's expensive to build roads, and that expense has gone up. And that's been, I think the stat I had was 60% of the gap is from the increase in building roads. And then the second part is the lack of revenue. As American cars get more efficient, they use less gas. And if you use less gas, then what you have is less revenue. And so the problem becomes, well, how are you going to increase that revenue? And there's several proposals out there. And, the new excise fee is something that Branstad's talking about here. Mm-hmm. I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's a terrible idea to have to increase the gas tax, because it hits the most vulnerable the worst. Guys like me and you, if bread goes up an extra, 2 cents, 3 cents a loaf because of transportation costs, it's not gonna hit us. Mm-hmm. If we have to pay an extra $5 a month at the gas station, it's not gonna affect us. If you get somebody like some of my patients, who have 2 or 3 kids, working 2 or 3 jobs, having to drive to these jobs, and suddenly that $4 or $5 a month really could make a difference. I know, having had a bunch of kids at home when I was raising them, bottom line is a loaf of bread is going to last you a meal. That's just the way it is. And I think it's a completely regressive tax and a terrible idea. There's a way to do this differently for Iowa. And, think about everybody that runs through Iowa. We have the largest truck stop in the world over in, is it Walcott? I think it's Walcott.
Yep. More about Davenport.
Yeah. You're talking about shutting down businesses. Don't get me wrong. Trucks will still stop and get gas. They just won't stop and get gas in Iowa. These guys can stop in Illinois, roll all the way out to Colorado without filling up. And that's the truth. I just don't think it's that great of an idea.
Well, if they're not, I don't know how you would, you can't, if you're looking at maybe increasing the fees for over the road truckers or something, that's gonna be hard to do with to get revenue that way, and it just makes everything in Iowa more expensive. I don't really have an opinion. I haven't thought too much about the increase in the gas tax one way or the other. I know that we use it for infrastructure projects. I think it goes in the road use tax fund, and that's a dedicated fund that is exclusively used to improve road and other transportation around the state. And I find it, one thing I think we might have a little bit of agreement, I find it interesting that the governor who's touting these record surpluses, or maybe not record surpluses, but these turnaround surpluses that he himself, to hear him talk, has brought to the state of Iowa after the disastrous Chet Culver years, according to him, wants to raise a fee, or wants to increase a fee to improve Iowa road infrastructure. Well, rather than give everybody a tax cut with those surpluses, why not leave the things the same? I'm not an economist. I'm not the treasurer. I'm not the auditor. I don't know what the budget situation looks like, so I don't study it very closely. So
like a true liberal.
It's like somebody who, like you said, has a life. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other on it. But one of the reasons why I don't is because I don't think it's going to happen. This is the go along, get along legislature this year. They're passing veterans legislation because they know they can pass it with overwhelming bipartisan support. No one's going to go out on a limb. You see you see Mike Gronstall out there talking that maybe it's not the best thing in the world to do, but if the governor puts it out there, they'll take a serious look at it, which means that he'd pass it. If Kerry Branstad proposes anything, and unless the Democrats think that they can get a sizable advantage with Jack Hatch as the presumed Democratic nominee, they'll go along with it. They're not going to touch it.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. There's a guy named Chris Hagenow who I've met several times and like him quite a bit, but he had the tightest election of anybody this last election cycle, and he's doing everything he can. I think he's going to run again, but he's doing everything he can. I mean, he's communicating, he's sending out weekly capital updates, he's doing all kinds of stuff out and about. He's going to avoid anything, that's going to be contentious. Now, Tom Shaw, on the other hand, he's not running, and he's going to tackle it. He's asking people everywhere, what do you think we ought to do? We have the shortfall. We need to get our roads up and all these other issues. Well, now he's going to, that's one of his things. I'm going to go along with Governor Branstad. Well, I think taxing is a terrible idea. I think we can start reducing spending in a lot of areas that are wasteful. Number one, in my opinion, is DHS. So we'll be back after.
We'll need to talk about that'll be another topic for another show.
Yeah, we'll be back right after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We're going to talk a little bit about the tele-abortion bill right after this. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Just briefly before we get into the tele-abortion bill, which I've followed just a little bit. See, the national things, the big stories, old Lefty here really has an eye for, but some of the more granular details of Iowa politics kind of slip by me because I don't have the magnifying glass and the finger on the pulse of the Iowa public the way that my partner does here. But to a question from one of the listeners who's chatting with the show live, he wanted us to show our work, and I think that's a fair thing. Doc made a decent point, but we can always kind of show our work in the rare when we make claims on the show. And generally that's something that we like to do maybe after the show when we have some time, put it up on Facebook or whatever. But if our listener wanted to, at least from my perspective, I'm talking about American right-wing leaders exporting draconian gay legislation to these different countries, at least in Uganda.
Yeah, draconian.
At least in Uganda is concerned, you can Google Lou Engle and Scott Lively Martin Simpa, who's one of the guys in Uganda, and then the bill sponsor, David Bahati, and you'll be able to find links to all the stories that link those particular leaders. Tony Perkins is involved in it to a certain degree, and we all know who Tony Perkins is. So you can Google those names, and you'll be able to find out some more information about just what kind of influence they had, at least in Uganda. But we want to talk about teleabortion. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'll kind of set this up. This is a bill that, it's not really a bill. It was it started as a directive from the Iowa health system, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, where they have been directing their doctors not to approve abortions unless the doctor's actually there, or is it abortion drugs? I think it's the drugs thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the drug things. The RU486. I believe there's another one.
They can't prescribe them unless the doctor is actually with the woman in the examining room. I believe is if I did I get anything wrong there? I think that's what it is.
No, that's what that's what I believe. I was talking to Tom Shaw earlier this week about it.
It's not a piece of legislation though. It was something that the hospital association did in Iowa.
Yes.
Change the rules.
And so they've introduced a legislation about this.
Right.
And so I was talking to Tom, and he was, of course, he's against it 100%. I will tell you, if you start monkeying with this telemedicine stuff too much, you're going to, wipe out any ability of these people in rural communities to get any kind of services. And that's just the way it is. And, a few months ago, I was talking to Tom about, the dearth of psychiatrists up in his area. Well, that's one of the ways you can get it up there. But the problem is how do you can't pick and choose your specialty, right? You can't pick and choose the procedure, because the bottom line is an abortion is technically a D&C, and a D&C is used all the time, right? It's used all the time. There are actual legitimate reasons to use a D&C. And the other thing is the technology is so advanced now that you can actually control a robot from a distance to do surgeries. And
they're not. Once again, I don't think they're talking about actually performing abortions over miles. An abortion would still be performed on site.
Yeah, it's the pill.
Right.
And the problem is,
we dispense medication from a distance all the time.
Yeah.
So I mean, my thought about this is,
well, the problem with telemedicine is my opinion is it's way too regulated. If I'm out, like I had an emergency when I was in Hawaii, I can call the person and I can talk to them, and that's okay. And I can actually call them on Skype and try to have a conversation with them. But that means that I have then acted as their physician. It's not like I have any safety.
Right.
I'm way away.
Right.
Well, part of the way that medicine in general makes sure that we keep everything on the best course possible is to be able to allow to establish that beyond a reasonable doubt, which is an exchange of currency, right? And when you're talking about these rural communities not getting any help, when you have a guy like me that could call right up there and settle whatever problem it is, suddenly you're having to jump through all these hoops. I have to have a nurse up there. I have to have up there where the patient's seen. I have to have the area approved. I have to have my office approved. I have to have my home approved. I'd have to have my hotel I was staying at approved. The whole 9 yards. It's just ridiculous.
So you would be more in favor of loosening the restrictions and be against any bill that made telemedicine more difficult to dispense.
Yeah, I would be. And don't get me wrong, I am a pro-lifer. I am. But the bottom line is telemedicine is a technology.
Yep.
That's what it is. You don't sit there and say, well, since you can use a forceps in an abortion, you can ban all forceps.
Right.
It's a tool.
Right.
And so the abortion issue needs to be the abortion issue. And that's what you need to focus on. And I understand the strategy. And don't get me wrong, I don't believe in abortion. And I try to talk people out of it, even though ethically I'm not supposed to. I'll just say up front, I'm an ethical violator. But the bottom line is telemedicine is a tool that you can use. And I hope that the legislature is smart and gentle with it, because I mean, we can do a whole lot of good with it. In fact, Youth Homes of Mid-America is part of it has a pilot study regarding telemedicine. And so far, it's working wonders. You know, it's a lot easier to have your patient call you and go, you know, I can't get my kid to the office. You know, there's some medications I deal with that are dangerous, right? And sometimes you have to use those medications. If I can call somebody and see into their lives, then I can do a much more effective job of going, oh, well, that's really what's going on. Because you have these kids that won't get in a car. Now what are you going to do, right? You can't see them. You can't prescribe, otherwise you might get in trouble. You got all these problems. So
I completely 100% agree. I mean, I in my job have been taught by numerous elder statesmen in the legal profession to not ever dispense legal advice over the phone. I believe that that's probably the best way to do it. However, we still rely on technology. We still rely on modern communication technology in my business. We still have phone hearings with the judge, you know, so I don't have to drive to Davenport or to Sioux Center or to any of these other places if I don't need to absolutely be up there in person. And it feels like a pretty obvious ploy, in my opinion, and an obvious sort of parry at the abortion issue, trying to take, you know, to chip away at just a little bit more. And if that's a strategy, I don't know. It didn't fool anybody for sure.
No.
The women's rights people or the women's issue people were all over it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But
keep in mind, I mean, just like this gay marriage issue has affected generations, you know, it took generations before it really became this issue where it could get passed. Same thing happened with abortion. And the problem is, and this is, I'm going to fault my own conservative colleagues. If you're going to ban abortion, you have to have the social infrastructure to provide for that child.
Well,
that's all I have to say about that.
Well, and this is something this is another claim I'm going to make, and I'm not saying that I don't know anything about this, but I was listening to one of the guests on Bill Maher's show make this claim, and so you can.
Oh my God, you're going to mention Bill Maher?
No, this is one of his guests said this, so that she read a study, and you can Google this if you want to. Read a study that said in 2013 that abortions in this country are at an all-time low. And that the study claimed it wasn't because of all the restrictive abortion legislation, because that's just happened in the last couple of years, but it's because contraception and family planning services have become more affordable, and especially now with the Affordable Care Act making it mandatory covered services, contraceptive pills, that sort of thing. It's going to they're projecting it to become even lower. So conservatives should be very happy that these women are not getting in a situation where they need to make that choice, whether or not to keep the child or have an abortion, and should maybe roll back some of their opposition to all these contraception issues that are out there. I don't know the methodology. I'm not claiming that study. I think it's an interesting tidbit that if you guys wanted to Google that study, abortion's at an all-time low because of contraception. That's something that maybe you all can do, but in your spare time. But I thought I'd just throw that out there.
Yeah. Well, I would argue with you about that one, especially since Obamacare just went into effect.
No. They're projecting it. The Affordable Care Act they're projecting, but there's because it's cheaper to get contraception than it ever has been in the last few years. You know, going back even to 2010 and to 2008, that women have been accessing contraception more, and that has led to fewer unplanned pregnancies, which would lead to fewer abortions. You plan on having a child, more power to you. If you don't, you're more likely to have an abortion, I think is how the reasoning would go. Yeah. And I don't think that's even an arguable point.
Well, yeah.
You're more likely to have an abortion if you have an unplanned kid.
Yeah, if you're not wanting the kid, yeah. Anyway, I want to thank my partner in crime, Lefty, for showing up, taking some hits from the internet, and keep rolling. He's a lawyer. He doesn't bother him.
I take hits all day.
Oh man. Well, Brennan, you're gonna have to tune in next week. We'll be handling these things next week. Want to thank everybody for listening. Want to thank our producer, Frank, who does a wonderful job every week that we're here. Actually makes me look good, which is a difficult task. Are you playing anywhere this week?
Yeah, I got a few gigs coming up before we see everybody next week on Tuesday. I'm playing at the Flying Moose in Clive on Thursday, February 13th. I'm playing at Mavericks, which is one of my favorite places to grab breakfast in West Des Moines. It's over by Poncheros across from the mall on Jordan Creek. Playing Mavericks 8 to 11. The Moose gig is 9 to 1 Thursday. And then I got another show coming at the end of February, but we'll talk about that closer to the date.
Right. Well, we have breaking news literally within seconds. Cerro Gordo, GOP has secured Senator Ted Cruz to keynote their county fundraiser on March 18th.
Oh, my.
Oh, my. Yeah, that's right. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my.
So I think there's another person that's going to be running for president.
Ted Cruz thinks that he's going to run for president. Boy.
Well, he might.
Boy, oh, boy.
he might do that. He might have a chance.
He might run the primary, but...
Yeah. All right.
Well, thanks, buddy.
Well, I'll see you next week.
It's always good.
See you all later.
Always good to see you.
All right. Take
Bye.
care.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Get over here. Love both of them.